All right, let's try this. All right, so hopefully you can hear me. And now I got to wait another 30 seconds to find out if my audio is okay. And it's also coming through my main output, so I'm going to lower that down real quick, which should be here. All right, so here we go. I can hear myself on the phone. All right, and how does that sound on your end? Is it too quiet, too loud? All good. Yeah, give me a shout. Let me know what is going on. Good morning, Sean. Welcome back. Always good to see you. Thanks for checking in. So I had to do some. I'll explain this why the audio has changed on my show briefly. I'm setting up vMix kind of in another profile, but on the same profile that I do my live streaming stuff on. I'm setting it up to do another show. And that show is like it's a interview base for the company that I work for. And so I'm trying to like get that ready to go. And I figured, well, I'll use vMix, although I'm here with Starlink. We'll use vMix on that, and maybe that will maybe we can bring in multiple callers that way and test it out. Well, in order to do the varying layers that are required for like bringing in callers and having their audio on when they are on screen, kind of automating some of that, because I want them to kind of be backstage, and I still haven't really figured out everything on this, mostly because I don't have somebody else to test it with, but I will soon. So sorry, I just adjust my seat here. So because I don't necessarily I started doing this yesterday and monkeying around with it, so now I'm using mix buses. And my microphone is going to mix bus A, when really it should have just been going to the master for this show. But which I could switch over, of course. So if I just do this instead, yeah, there we go. So I'm going out to the master instead of the mix bus, and that is a little bit more desired, I think, in this scenario. But we'll go from there. Now, Sean reports that it is a little low, my audio, and again, that could be a few things factoring in here, but let me check my I see why. So that is because I was not at zero, more than likely. I was not at zero on my X32, which brings in this sound. Man, I've had to do so much stuff in the past week, and again, I can try and catch everybody up here, but my audio line. Thank you, Sean. Thanks for checking in here. So one of the things that I wanted to figure out was every time I turn my computer on, my microphone would not connect to the computer. And it ended up being a patching issue where for some reason my computer was muting the microphone input, but also I had a bunch of inputs that were showing up and outputs showing up from my UMC 1820 HD. So that is my USB interface for XLR, or quarter inch, but XLR patches coming into my computer so we can do things with like Ableton and recording things in DaVinci and so on and so on and so on. So I had all these inputs basically being exposed to Windows, and Windows was basically arbitrarily picking random things, especially when this microphone was not immediately available. And this microphone was then being captured by programs on my computer, which then made it unavailable for Windows to do other things. And so when I load vMix, or when I would log into, have like a web conference or something like that, my microphone wouldn't work and wouldn't be seen because it was already being used by another device on the computer. That was really annoying. What I wanted is the only input for my microphone to be the mix bus that I send back from my X32 back to my computer. And so the trail, right, goes microphone into a preamp. This is a DBX286S preamp, 1U preamp. And that provides phantom power and then goes through a chain of compression and gates and a few other things, which I'm not even really using right now. And then that goes into the UMC 1820 on channel 3. So then input 3 is this microphone on the UMC, the Behringer, and then out of that USB device into my X32. It's patched over into my X32. And so my X32 can see the microphone as a channel, and then it can spit it out into any sort of mix buses that I want. So I have mix buses that are for microphones only, they're for browser only, they're for music only, it's for computer sounds only, and so on and so on and so on. So all I want my computer to see is my microphone source from my mix bus, which is mix bus 2. And out of the X32, I want my computer to see as an input on this machine, my microphone as an audio input, I want to see mix bus 2. So that's where I got to, where I went through Windows. I probably had 30 different audio inputs from all of my devices that are connected to my computer. I probably had about 30 different input devices, and I basically removed everything that I don't need the computer to see and set it up so that this guy is the primary. Now, it doesn't really change the fact that when I turn my computer on, the channel is still muted for some reason, but I have figured out what button that is on my keyboard, the unmute button, on my Logitech Business, whatever this thing is called, that I can just press that, and then I can monitor things in the X32. So it's all working a lot better audio-wise. And then yesterday, 2 days ago, but yesterday we got into a discussion about, hey, we want to do this interview with some new people that are going to be working with us, and we want to put that up on YouTube and Facebook. How do we do that? And so I was like, well, I can do that from here, basically, because this is my production studio when I'm at home. And so I'm going to host it in vMix with vMix Caller, but that means I needed to change over. Basically, the way that it was like the audio that comes in with vMix Caller would just be on. So if they would come in and we were playing intro music or whatever, it would just be on automatically. Well, I didn't want that. I wanted to host the show like I do here, where it's just my microphone on this page, and then I would bring them into the show either individually or in a grid, and when their image appears on the screen in program, I want their audio to be live. And then if I remove them from the screen, then I don't want them to be live. But I also want them to be able to hear me coming back, and I don't necessarily want them to hear themselves, right? So you have to set up mix buses so that the return audio is not also duplicating their voices. So it gets a little complicated, to say the least, but we are going to talk about some of that actually today with Intercomms, because it's the same idea, it's the same concept of we want to talk, but we don't necessarily want to hear ourselves, but then we also want some other things as well. So I'm pretty excited about today's show for a couple of reasons. The first primarily being that as soon as this show is done, I'm going to pack it up and take it to the soundstage tomorrow morning at 8:30 Central Time and start installing it, hard installing it. But I've kind of put it off all week because of this show. I want to share this and be sure I get this out on the live stream so that people can see what it is that we're planning to do. So we'll go from there, but let's start this show off proper and go ahead and check in with people. Oh, hey, Randy, how's it going? Thank you so much for stopping on by. Always a pleasure to have you on here as well. Looks like we're doing all right. I'm going to listen to my audio just one more time, make sure I'm not peaking or anything. Okay, my phone sounds pretty good for a phone, so that's great. Let me think. There's so much stuff that we probably should just briefly touch on before we start the intercom portion of this show. My garage I still have the slab outside. Last week they had poured the concrete, and I've called the company, and they are waiting for the trusses for the roof to get built, and the garage door, which is a special order, they're waiting for that to come. And then what else is going on? So there not too much has happened out there. Oh, I've done some shopping in terms of, this is good. I've done some browsing, I should say, for what the network will be out there and how I'm going to get data out there. But I've also decided that I'm going to stick with the TP-Link Omega brand as my going forward brand for the backbone across this network, my home network. And that's a managed side of things. Now, I used to say, don't trust anything that has link in the name. I actually need to take some of that back. The managed side of TP-Link, this Omega brand, seems to be pretty robust and well integrated, just like Ubiquiti is. Whereas like Ubiquiti has a user interface that's fairly intuitive, but you can manage all of the elements, all of the switches, all of that stuff. If it's a managed switch, you can do all that inside of a centralized controller. And so that's my next step, actually, is I'm going to get the controller, which is a cloud controller. I was running it off of my computer, which you can also do with Ubiquiti, by the way. They have a software controller. The issue is when the computer shuts off or goes to sleep, the controller disappears. So that's not very good. So I'm going to buy a controller. It's like $80. I'm going to buy it and install it here in the house this weekend. And then that network will be up on a web UI permanently without the need for me to worry about this computer turning off and on. Now, I ran into a problem with the Omeda controller software being installed on my computer, which may be relevant to your interests. The controller software operated on port 8088, okay, 8088 or 8089. And guess what else operates on that port? vMix Social. And so when I booted vMix Social, it reported offline because it couldn't get to that port on my computer. So did a little troubleshooting yesterday, couldn't figure it out. Did troubleshooting today, and it said go to 127.0.0.1 semicolon 8088 and see what comes up. And lo and behold, not vMix Social came up, but my controller for my network. Now, that's a recent install. I did that like a week ago or a week and a half ago, and then haven't really needed vMix Social since then for maybe it was like last weekend I did that on Friday and adopted the network to the controller on my computer. Okay, good to know that those are the same ports, and there does not seem to be a way to change the ports for the controller or for vMix Social. So now I turned off the controller just for today, and lo and behold, restarted Social, and now it's up and running. So I'm able to bring your comments into the show without any issue, but the best thing to do would be to add a controller elsewhere at the physical controller that TP-Link actually sells and just join the network over there. And that way then I can go to the website and log in and manage my devices remotely wherever I am in the world. So that's really the right way forward. There is another network that I'm doing this as a test, but there's another network where I will need to control it remotely, and we'll probably end up getting the controller for that one as well. And then it'll all be on the same UI. So interesting that the same ports were being used for those two services, and you can only use one at a time. So I had to turn off the controller for today's show, and now vMix Social is working just fine. Okay, that was a lot. That's a lot to kind of cover real quick, but hey, we did it in less than 15 minutes. What's going on here? Okay. Now it claims excellent condition. Sorry, I don't know what has happened here, but we got dropped off for some reason. I looked down and sure enough. So give me a quick second. Make sure that this has stabilized a little bit. Okay, I can hear myself again, so that's good news. Sorry about that, folks, but yes, we definitely had a little buffering issue. I saw it actually in vMix, which means that it's probably my internet, which is really annoying. Although it was only to YouTube that the problem had. Over on Twitch, we kept going. So, yeah, very interesting. Anyways, all right, so let's talk. I'll try and monitor that, just make sure. Actually, you know what? I'll pull up the health of the stream right here and make sure that we don't drop anything. All right. Okay. All right, so here's what's going on. We're replacing our intercom system over at the soundstage, and we're going to build one. There are, like all industries, there are ways of accomplishing these goals, and there are lots of box-related products where you can go and buy a system, install it in the rack, and turn it on and customize it, and it should be good to go. Or you can put it together yourself with parts that are available in the industry, piece it together, customize it, and get it up and running. Well, quite honestly, the way that I see this is buying a box system is really only advantageous when you really don't know anything about audio, patching, routing, Dante, a bunch of things. When you just need something quick and good, like let's go right away, get this up and running as fast as we can. When that's the case, then, and maybe your technical base is not very, we'll say your volunteers are not very deep in terms of how much they can really understand what it is that you need to do. that becomes, you start shopping more frequently for I just want to purchase something that I can turn on and it works. Our current system, which is a Ceramonic system, is that type of system. It's a wireless-based system. It's expandable, kind of. And Hollyland has a system like that, a wireless-based system. Also, it's great if you just want to, I just want to put in a line item. This year, we're going to buy an intercom system. It's going to be $5,000. And then I pay $5,000 and I get whatever products I can get for $5,000. If that's your goal, fantastic. If that's your level of integration, great. That sort of product works great for you. And companies have made a lot of money providing that kind of turnkey solution for churches and lecture halls and schools and all sorts of things. So that is category number one, okay? That's kind of like baseline intercom system level number one. The next level is kind of adding some customization things to those systems. And so maybe you want to expand, you're going to have to buy the hub to do that, and then you're going to add more headsets. You got to synchronize them. You got to do a few things, and maybe you want to add program to that system. Maybe there's a way to do that, and so you're going to figure that out. That's like phase two. That's like baseline with customization, right? So you're thinking a little bit more about integration. Beyond that is just full-on customization. And there are a couple of camps here. There are places, companies like ClearComm, who offer still an in-box experience where you can put the unit in the rack and you can plug in an array of headphones and, you can kind of be off to the races. You can run wire. You can do it over AV, AV over IP. You can do a handful of things with that. And it's quite versatile. Also, a company like ClearComm integrates with other companies on a much broader scale. And they've done a lot of that work for you as you buy it. Now, with that feature set comes a fair bit of expense. And so it's more expensive to go down this route where you have a company that specializes in doing intercoms or something like that. You buy, I want, 10 headsets with an intercom system. You buy that package, you install it in your network rack, you run the cables, you plug them in, you route them through the system, and it works. Like it does. They've made their money making sure that sort of thing works. So good news is that's kind of level 3 where it's more intentional. The purchase is still turnkey, but it's a far more intentional system for that thing, and ClearComm is a great example of that. But the next level of craziness for that, basically, because you can do all the customization on that level 3, you can add other products. The next one is just full customized for your purpose. A unit that is fully customized and that you've built from the ground up. And so I kind of went from phase 1 to phase 4, just straight up. I decided, you know what, nuts to this. There are some pretty big trade-offs here, which you should be aware of, and it's not a perfect, implementation of the system. But I definitely want to explain why it is that I'm comfortable going in this direction. So this phase, I don't know if it's phase 4 or like phase, 3.2, but this phase is you buy products that can accomplish your goal, but you integrate them yourself, and they don't necessarily all belong to the same company. So you buy a product from here and you buy a product from here and it's kind of like building your own computer, right? If you build your own computer, you're not going to the Micro Center and paying for a fully assembled, customized, fully assembled product. You are building it, meaning you're going and you're picking out the case or the server rack. You're going and you're picking out the motherboard. You're going and picking out the chip that you want, AMD or Intel. You're going to pick out the GPU and the RAM, and you're doing all of the things and then ordering all those parts and then putting them together and then seeing if they work. And what's extremely dangerous about this is you don't know if it's going to work. But what's extremely satisfying is when it does all work. And that, I think, is where I get the biggest dopamine kick in the whole world. Because if I can build something from a bunch of parts and get it all to work at high efficiency levels, and it be far more flexible than anything that we have had before, that's like a huge deal for me. And a matter of fact, it proves that I can do it, proves that I still got a bit of an edge in the game. And quite frankly, you don't necessarily have to invent it all yourself. And I need to give proper due proper, kudos here to who it's due, and to a guy named Doug Johnson Productions. So he did a video several years ago about how he made an intercom system with an X32. It was an X32 rack. Okay, so it had inputs and outputs. But about a year ago, he created another video saying, this thing is way too restrictive for the flexibility that I need, and so instead, I'm going to try building it with these systems, and here's what I've done. And so not only does he show the products that he buys on that video, he shows the integration. Now, it takes a little bit of fumbling about to figure out how to get all of this to work, but I will go through the products that we purchased, which are very similar to the ones that Doug chose. Actually, I think they're all suggestions from the ones that Doug chose, but we will show the products, and I will explain to you the way that I went about creating the map. That's what today's show is all about. So first and foremost, we need to look at what is the DSP. Okay, the DSP is a digital signal processor. It's the brain of the network that is behind the installation. Every Dante network needs to have a DSP, because the DSP is basically the thing that will route the data for the Dante. The ones and zeros will be able to route it to and from the receivers and the transmitters. So what did we go with? Well, we went with a unit known as a Symmetrix Radius. Now this one, sorry, I don't know why it muted my channel. This one is an NX model, which is kind of the current one that they have available. There's also another level known as the EX, I think. But anyways, it's not on their website. This is this is kind of like the flagship, if you will, which is what they say here, of the Symmetrix DSPs. And what you can do with this is you can integrate Dante signals and analog signals into the same interface and then route them in and out any way that you want. So we can bring in analog systems and have them going out Dante headsets. We can bring in Dante signals and have them going out analog systems, and more. There's a lot more to it than just that, but that is the base. So we went with a Symmetrix Radius, not the NX model, and the NX model is the one that has the AEC module to it, which is the echo cancellation. And primarily, it would be used, in my instance, is if my microphone is turned on my headset, the program that the microphone can pick up in the main speakers. So let's say I have a set of monitors, or I'm in the main production soundstage, and it's hearing the program come through the speakers into my microphone, it would try and echo cancel that out so that it's just my voice. That feature is not necessarily something I really need. What I really need is a far more flexible intercom system. And so that's why we went with this one. And we were able to buy it on eBay for a fairly inexpensive price. And so I didn't know if this was going to work. I didn't want to buy a brand new one and then be roped into, you can't actually even buy these brand new from B&H or anybody like that. You have to go through one of their sales guys. So finding one online can be a little bit tricky. Now, they make other models that would do the same thing if you didn't necessarily need all of these inputs and outputs, okay? So these are analog inputs and outputs on the back of this unit. But the digital signal processor, the Prism, comes in various models. Now, you can see here that it's got a bunch of different models. The Prism, you can add a Dante card to, okay, but you'd have to do that specifically. But what I would probably go with if this unit fails is the Prism 4x4, because I currently don't need any more inputs and outputs than 4. But there is also an 8x8, which is also probably the other option. And it comes in various styles. I do like that this is a 1U rack mounted unit and that you have a network port and a Dante port, and it works really well for this. So this unit, the Prism 8x8, would do the same thing that we're talking about here with the with the Radius series. But the Radius series also has this NX option, which would allow you to add the AEC echo cancellation stuff on there. So, Yeah, it's pretty great. Also has the ability to integrate USB audio. So if you have a computer, you want to plug it in directly to this thing, then this can bring in and out USB audio into a computer. So that's very handy as well. Okay, so we had gone with the Radius version. And just to make this a little bit, we're going to bring in Sean here real quick. He just said, hey, I picked up 2 Edge models. I'm waiting for my final course and certification. So these, let's just take a look at these pictures. So this has modules that you can buy. The Edge frame is the current one that's on the website, but it looks like we have logical outputs and external controls. But, ooh, these are kind of cool. The modules that I would end up buying are the line ins and line outs, analog line outputs for the Edge cards. And how many slots? It's got 4. So then you could also do, let's see here. It's got Dante already, which is great, and Ethernet. So this product would also do what it is that I am explaining to do. So there are lots of options from Symmetrics. There's also a product from Biamp, which Doug talks about. He has all 3, and he's trying out all 3. The Biamp allegedly has a little nicer user interface, but this one has a lot more Dante inputs and outputs, which is really what I want. I want the flexibility going forward, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. Okay, so let me make sure my audio, audio's still going out. Okay, so we are, you know what, I'm going to negate this here. 1 second. All right. Now, okay, so my audio is now going out to master through A, which I think will help when I'm switching between screens. Okay, so we're using the Symmetrics Radius, and that has proven to be pretty good. Now, we bought a used one, which means that I don't know how much life I've got left on it, and it got pulled out of an install. Now, Symmetrics is in a lot of spaces that are commercially driven, lecture rooms, conference rooms, hotels, houses of worship, but you definitely have to, like Sean is saying here, if you want to buy from them and that sort of thing, you need to be certified to do that. I am not certified. I'm just figuring this out based on Google searches and YouTube videos and a whole bunch of things, which, again, shout out to Doug Johnson for providing that. Okay. So we bought a Symmetrics Radius. We also purchased some pretty inexpensive headphones. They are HyperX headphones. I'll get one here from it. These are just the HyperX standard TRRS headphones. I haven't even taken the plastic off of it yet. These seem to work really well. Okay. The microphone boom arm does have an auto mute function that you can flip up. And so if you don't want to talk on microphone, it will mute the headset itself. But the body packs that we bought for the Dante body packs also have a mute button. And so this is not necessary. This isn't necessary for everyday function. If you want to leave your headphone down and just click the talk button, that is also possible. Now, the headphone piece is going to be important for another level of integration that we're going to talk about. But we bought some Studio, Technologies Incorporated belt packs. These are Dante-enabled belt packs. They literally have a belt loop on them. And they allow you to listen to 2 channels. However, I'm doing left and right on here. And there's a talk button, yes and no talk button. So if you click that button, your microphone turns on. If you click it off, you're just listening. So these are a little bit pricey, but they give us a fair bit of flexibility. You can use their PoE. Okay, so you run these to your 4250 on your Dante network, and they acquire an IP address DHCP on their own. I can guarantee. I can't personally guarantee your experience, but my experience was they absolutely worked that way. And they give you a 5-pin headset option, XLR option, and then they give you a TRRS headset option as well. Now, there are multiple models of this. This model is going to be the 372A belt pack, and it gives you the Dante interface as well. When you plug this in, it shows up in Dante Controller, and then you can route it as you need to. Okay, I also have then had to troubleshoot a little bit. So these are those headphones that I bought a long time ago for Intercom, for Safe Harbor, that never really worked. Well, now they're going to work. And so these are open-backed headphones. They're Audio Technica, and they're a little bit more expensive than those cheapos that we bought, which are just $40. And if they break, they break. It's not a big deal, right? Because I've got volunteers, I've got kids, I've got all sorts of things that are going to be using those headphones. And so we will probably buy one for each pack and then probably buy one spare as well. But it's not going to break the bank to have those. But this headphone, this is going to be in the director's spot, which is plugged into that one that I just showed you. And it's a great little headset, very comfortable, great drivers. Okay, so the actual headphones themselves, what is the model on these? Because, but the Audio Technica drivers on these are really nice and have been working really well while I've been testing things here on the intercom here at my house. Okay, that's the hardware that we've purchased. Now, there is also a Dante AVIO input-output driver. Those things are like the little PoE. Where is it here? It's here somewhere on my desk. Okay, here we are. So you guys are all probably familiar. If you know anything about Dante, you're familiar with these sort of adapters. This adapter is the Audinate 2-channel AES3IO adapter. And what this is one input and one output. They show up as left and right inside of controller, but both of them do. And one is a receiver and one is a transmitter. And we're going to use this to integrate program into our headset. So we're going to come out of the soundboard as a bus or a matrix or something, and we're going to go out of an output, an XLR output, and into our program, and then into our headsets, our intercoms. And then I'm going to mix that. I'll show you how to do that in a second. I'm going to mix that channel into the intercoms because these, as you may have noticed, are closed-back headphones. And I want to eliminate distractions inside our soundstage with our technical crew by providing them with closed-back headphones, but then piping in program so that they can still hear what is going on. Now, we'll do some fun little, control efforts here with that, and I'll show you that when we get into the software. But this will then provide program out of the soundboard into our system, and it will then also provide intercoms back to the soundboard so that my sound technician, who has never been able to listen to our conversation, can listen in and see what it is we're talking about. So he can now finally join our technical talk, which means that if we ever move or he gets moved out somewhere else, or I, as the director, move out of the actual tech booth and into a different room, everybody's still next to each other. So it's kind of a really nice, this was, you can get ones that are dual inputs or dual outputs, or you can get input-output. And so that's the one that we went with. Again, I plug it in. Dante controller recognizes it right away, recommended a firmware update right away. This is how controllers are supposed to work, where you plug it in and it says, hey, there's new firmware. Do you want to update? I clicked yes, and it did the update. That's all it was. Okay, so that is how it's done. And I really hope people take note. One thing I should mention, too, about the Studio Technology belt packs is they have something called the ST controller. And what that is it basically just searches for their products on your network and can do firmware updates. And so when you pull it up, it says current firmware that's on the product and current available firmware. And then do you want to update? And you can say yes, and off it goes. Inside that controller as well, the ST controller for the belt packs is a way to turn on power to the headphones. And so I put them on and I couldn't hear anything. And I was like, what on earth is going on? Well, then you can go in and you can add power to the TRRS port. And you can say, I want it to be 24, I want it to be 30, I want it to be 36. And that will send power from phantom power, or from PoE power, which is coming from the switch. That will send power to the headphones, so it will power the microphone, and we'll make that all work. So that's really cool because you can set it, save it, and forget it. All right? And then those products, those belt packs, all show up inside Dante Controller. So as usual, you do need to have a copy of Dante Controller running, and you need to have a copy of whatever the software is that you're running to organize the brains of the DSP. Now, in this instance, that software is called Composer. This is version 8.5, and it looks something like this. Sorry. Composer, then you can pick the product that is your DSP. So look, I have Radius NX, Radius 12x8, standalones, legacy DSP. So there is this is a legacy DSP. So this is the Radius 12x, which is the one that I picked. Oh, look, the EX is also on that Radius legacy list. So that's good to know. The current products are the NX versions, the Prisms, and then where is the one that you just saw? Oh, the Edge right there. So it's under the current product as well. So in the future, in 5 years, when I want to upgrade the brains of this thing, you can use something like the Prism 4x4 or 8x8 because I'm going to need analog inputs, and I'll explain that in a second. If you don't need analog inputs, you could just use the 0x0, and that is strictly Dante. So if we were going to run Dante belt packs to each of our camera operator locations, I wouldn't necessarily need the analog inputs on the back of the product, which is what Prism 4x4, 8x8, that's 4 inputs, 4 outputs, or 8 inputs, 8 outputs. Thoughts on doing the same thing, but integrating it with an existing ClearComm system to our system? Yes. So the analog ports on the back of this can be ported over to a ClearComm system, but Studio Technologies also makes an interface, a Dante interface, that allows you to interface between ClearComm and these products. So check them out. I think it's studiotech.com or studio-tech.com. And they make an interface that allows you to plug in a ClearComm system, and then it's basically party line into ClearComm. So party line in and out. So anytime you talk or they talk, the system can hear it. So good question, Sean. Yes, it is doable, and Studio Technologies actually has a product to do that. You know, that's kind of, you can purchase, it's out of the box. All right, so this is the Composer software, and what Composer does is allows you to logically map out how you want your inputs and outputs to work in the system, and then allows you to push them to the device or devices that you want it to do. So, for example, let's say you're an integrator and you want to get into the integration of intercoms for churches. You can basically make a single template and save it, export it as a file, and then offer people a system. Hey, for X amount of dollars, we can buy this system. You'll get 6 headsets. You'll get, everything will be wired, ready to go. You pay on the dotted line, and this is what you'll get. On the back end, as the integrator, you can then create that baseline template that will give you 6 or 12 or however many you want. And by the way, it's easy to duplicate this sort of thing, easy to duplicate the process, and then you can sell that as a product as an integrator, as a contractor. So you can say, look, but it's fully Dante, it's fully customizable. We can do whatever you want, but also you're going to get a whole bunch of Dante channels that you've never had before, which will then open up a floodgate of options when it comes to working on, into the future as audio becomes more digital and less about running XLR and analog cables. So inside Core, you basically then bring in your product that you want to use, and products can be linked together, by the way, in this overview. But here we are, and I'm going to just double click on my Radius, and this is the actual page that shows my logical pathway for my lines, my audio lines inside Dante. So let's go through this real quick, and then you can tell me maybe how to do this more efficiently, or maybe you'll learn something. Now, I looked at Doug Johnson's, how he did it. There are a few features he has that I don't, but I looked at how he did it, and then I made my own out of that. So this is me dreaming, similar to how Doug did it, but this is for my own install. So up on top, initially you have your channels, your inputs and your outputs that are automatically logged in. This machine is a 12x8, so it has 12 inputs and 8 outputs, physical analog inputs and outputs. I'm going to use the first 4, which is just Group A. I'm going to use the first 4 as my cameras, my camera operators. Now, when we were at NAB, we were able to talk to a guy who told us that pretty much with the pinout that we have for, I'm just going to delete this, for the pinout from Blackmagic that we have, we can integrate into pretty much any analog system, okay? That sparked a little interest in my mind, and it has yet to be proven. We're going to find out tomorrow if my my hopes and dreams are correct, and I'll explain a little more about that in a second. But you can basically cross cable into any analog system via Ethernet jack. Now, on the back of the Blackmagic Studio converters for the 6K camera line, there are Ethernet talkback ports, and online you can find on Blackmagic's website the pinout for those talkback ports, and you can create then transmit and receive, okay, positive, negative, transmit and receive ports that will allow you then to integrate those talkback ports into a system like this. On the back of this unit, as I was showing you earlier, let me re-pull that up here. On the back of the unit, there are inputs and outputs. Now, this is for the NX 4x4 because they don't have the radius unit on here anymore. But I have a 12x8 essentially. So let me load this picture and then share it with you. Okay, so I've got this 12x8 without the NX. And this is what it looks like on the back. It has the logical outputs, okay? And then it has analog line outputs here, and it has analog input mic and line inputs over here. So we've got channels 1, 2, 3, 4. That's in bank A. And then bank B is 5, 6, 7, 8. And then C is 9, 10, 11, and 12. All right, well, that coincides with what we see over here on this radius 12x8. And this is bank A right here. So I have split out, there are 2 talkback ports on the Blackmagic Studio talkback Ethernet port. There are 2. One is labeled production and one is labeled engineering. And all that is basically to say you have 2 separate channels. So what I've done is I've actually cut them out, and I don't know if this routing is true yet, but we will find out. What I've done is I have made them cams 1 and 2 left and right. So channel 1 is cam 1 left. Channel 2 is cam 2 left. Channel 3 is cam 1 right. And channel 4 is cam 2 right. So those channels then are mapped and connected via analog connectors, which I had here. They're Phoenix connectors. They were in a little baggie here on my desk, and then I cleaned my desk. And so you all know how that goes. You clean it off, and then you can't find the things. So they're little Phoenix connectors that connect into the back of the product, and I spliced out the Ethernet cables and ran positive to positive and negative to negative and so on and so forth. So I could be way wrong here, okay, the way that this is going to work. I could be totally off. My wiring might be totally backwards. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. But the theory is that you run positive and negative for all these channels. You plug them into the back of the unit, and then you can have talkback over the Blackmagic converters. And those channels are not necessary. I don't know how it works on the Blackmagic side. Like, how do you mute the microphone other than flipping it up, which is why it's nice to have that feature here on this product. I don't necessarily know how it's all going to work, but the idea is that we can integrate between analog and digital and make everybody on the same party line, which then you're like, well, John, why don't you just get a body pack and put them on there and then it's all Dante? Well, that kind of defeats the purpose of the one cable connection, which Blackmagic, I think, is doing fairly well, much like the NDI world. Remember how Bird Dog cameras are PoE, everything, all digital, all one cable. You just run an Ethernet cable to it. You plug it into a 4250. The camera turns on, and it all works. Same thing goes for the studio. The studio provides all the power to the camera down on the floor, so we just ran one Ethernet cable. Well, if I run a second Ethernet cable down there, it kind of defeats the purpose of the one cable installation, right? So what we want to do is be able to run the intercoms along parallel with the channels on this unit, and everybody can hear and talk, and we can just plug in a headset to the Blackmagic unit. Hey, I did the exact same thing with those connectors the other day. It took 30 minutes to find them. Yes, I'm really hopeful that it's going to work, but I'm confident because of the conversation that I had with Blackmagic back in April that it should be doable. Okay, so let's talk just a little bit more here about this layout, and I can walk you through what it is that I'm thinking I'm doing, and then again, feel free to offer corrections, or maybe you'll learn something. Oh, I also need to drink my cold coffee. If only I had a mug that kept my coffee warm. Bah! All right, so we have these analog channels here in the mic and line analog input module. And they run over to a matrix, which then brings all of my inputs into the same place. There is also a network module, which is the Dante side of things, okay? And these are all of my Dante inputs, which is 1 through 64. Now, I have 64 Dante inputs with this radius unit, 64 by 64 outputs. And if you double click on this, what's really neat about this is if I'm sending audio over a Dante module, which I could wear a headset, I guess, and show you this. Oh, but I also need to connect it to the network. All right, let me just do this real quick. So we're going to connect. And when you connect it to the network, it will show status online, which is down here in the bottom left-hand corner. I've turned my microphone on. You should not be hearing anything because this is not going in and out of my computer in any way. But as the unit powers on and I'm able to hear myself, I can hear myself through the headphones, but it's just actually from the power on the director's kit. Okay, and then we got an audio ramp up so that we don't hurt anyone's ears. Okay, now when I click on this, I should be getting, I know why. One moment, please, while I switch over to a separate computer and turn on Dante Controller. And I will share that in a hot second, too. There we go. So Dante Controller does need to run, and if you restart the unit, which I definitely have, then you'll need to make the connections for Dante Controller over on that machine. So we will have Dante Controller running at the soundstage, but I want to connect my talking microphone into my Dante grid. Boom, there it all is. Okay, so the director is here, and I want to talk. We're going to go to the radius as well. So the talking channel needs to go to number 1, which is where, and I can, I'm an idiot. Let me show you this too as to what it is that I'm doing, just so that you're not sitting in the dark. I have this remoted in. Okay, so here is Dante Controller. And Dante Controller is very simple to use. It's just a matrix system, much like that's very common inside of the AV over IP world. Actually, I think Dante Controller is the genesis of that. But here are all my channels. And so my transmitters are here. These are my microphones or my inputs. And then my receivers or my outputs are on this side. So what I've noticed is on these belt packs, the microphone, if this unit ever reboots, the unit doesn't ever drop the actual receiving side of the belt packs, but it does drop the microphone. So you do need to turn this all on, set them up inside controller, and then when you turn off composer and you turn off, you can shut down controller, all of those channels should then stay until you have either a power cycle or you need to make a change. And so, if the power shuts off on the Symmetrics radius, or if there's some other sort of glitch in the system, you can just open controller again and marry those. Now, it's pretty simple for 1 and 2. because, it's pretty simple. But here I can even match. So there's another headset over there, the HyperX that I was showing you earlier. That one is there. So there's Dante controller, really simple. Now there is a way, by the way, to save as a preset, and I'm going to do that and see if that works. This is the AVIO unit, and those two channels are 7 and 8. So I'm going to save as a preset and save. All right. And now, as you can see, my signal from the director's headset is now coming into my Dante my Dante interface on side of the Dante inputs. Okay, so when we load this up, we double click on this. The module is called Network Receive Module, and this shows all of your Dante inputs, and there's 64 of those. And here we are with channel 1, which is me talking in there. Now, try and follow my train of thought here. I promise you it makes sense, but there's a really cool feature inside of this that will help us figure out if we're troubleshooting or if we have problems with the signal train. Okay, so number 1, right, goes into the matrix at input 5. And the reason is because we've got 4 inputs of analog that go in 1, 2, 3, 4. So the first Dante channel is then inside the matrix, number 5. And the way you set that up inside the matrix is you can customize, first of all, you can customize the matrix to be as many inputs and outputs as you want. And so I need 64 Dante inputs for sure. And then I probably need another set of inputs for other things, computers, AVIO products, and whatever else, analog inputs, outputs. So I have selected here that my matrix has 96 inputs and 64 outputs. And this can be changed at any time by customizing the module properties. And you can add or take away inputs and outputs digitally without any real issue. So if we open this up, then you can see the kind of the connection matrix ins and outs, and it's just 1 for 1. So, channel 1 goes from channel 1 to output channel 1. And let me explain this a little clearer. See how it says Blackmagic design 1, right? Okay, so that would be camera 1 left is in the matrix input 1 and goes out it goes into the matrix via 1. And then we'll talk about outputs in just a minute. So here we go. We have inputs. And on these inputs, you can label them here on this screen. So here I've got Blackmagic Cam 1 left, Blackmagic Cam 2 left, Blackmagic Cam 1 right, Cam 2 right. Okay, and then Dan for Dante. So Dan 1, Dan 2, Dan 3, Dan 4, yada, yada, yada. You'll notice here on channel 11 that this is Dante program, right? And that is program left. And then on 12 is program right. And then I don't really have anything beyond that yet because we're only talking about 6 Dante positions. Actually 8 technically, but we're only talking about 6 right now. Okay, so those are the inputs. And then on the output screens, each of these is the individual output. So you can go out 96 different outputs, right? So input 1 is connected to party line 1, and party line is basically the we're going to combine all of the signals that I want to be shared inside my headphones. We're going to combine them as a party line, and it's going to be known as party line 1, okay, or just party line, PL. So PL is now then connected to each of these inputs. So these are microphones or whatever, and they go on and on and on and on. And so this took a little bit of this was a little bit of a trip, but as you can see, all these channels are muted, whereas these ones back here, these ones aren't being used yet, but these ones back here will be unmuted. So party line 5 is connected to Dante 1. That's me right here. All right. Party line 1-6 is connected to Dante 2, and so on. So those are my outputs. And then you can see then the PL5. Let's go with PL5, which is right here, this line. PL5 then goes into a via. Now, vias are a way of transporting a signal to 2 separate spots in the chain. Okay, so right here we're going into via. Well, now I can create as many output vias as I want. And so I could create 3 of these and have 3 different signal chains, or I could just, initially I did 1. Now I do have a secondary one that's being built here at the bottom, but I haven't quite figured out exactly how I want to map that out. So I'm not doing anything with that yet, but soon. So we go into a via and out of a via, which is basically just a tunnel, okay? And so we had said that it was PL5 was this microphone input. So out of 5 then comes into my gating auto mixer. Gating auto mixer. The gating auto mixer, what that does is it shuts the gate on my microphone when I'm not talking. Now you'll notice that it doesn't do anything yet because I haven't actually turned this part on. But the gate will turn off my microphone when and you can set it to be set at a certain decibel rating. So you'll notice that the audio drops right off. Okay, there's no audio. When I stop talking, that audio drops right off, which is what you want. You want that thing to completely fall off. And what we can do here is we can set main levels for everybody in the mix, right? Because you noticed before we were just doing input mixes. So here is the raw audio, and I'm going to try and get the audio levels to be relatively close for average talking. But what we want here is we want the signal to be coming in. I want to be able to see it. It needs to be in this upper range. But then notice how there's not really any gain changes or anything. Actually, there's 0 here. And so then we go into the via. Well, the first place then to really set the gain structure is here at the gating auto mixer. And this will allow us to set priorities for who is talking over who. So as the director, and because, my ego's so big, I want to be the one to be able to be heard over anyone else that's talking. And so I could set, for example, my priority higher than others, but this is a good place to kind of start doing some gain staging. So you can have somebody talking and say, hey, go ahead and, recite your favorite poem or sing your favorite lyrics or speak your favorite lyrics and get a signal from them. And then you could set their audio level from here. And then you know that you have a good baseline going forward. Okay, out of the auto mixer is back into a matrix mixer. What this matrix mixer is going to do is it's going to add or subtract the party line and the program audio. So it depends on what you want to do here, right? Now think of this with me. We have I just need to check my phone. We have our sound guy who is listening to the stream happening on his headset. But our intercom team, if we wear closed back headphones or headphones in general, it's going to be hard for us to hear the program. So I want to add the program to the intercoms so that we can all hear what is being said on stage. However, the sound guy already has that luxury. As a matter of fact, he has far more granular control because he's doing things like EQ testing and a whole bunch of stuff. So he doesn't need to hear that, but he needs to hear us. Well, we need to then send him a separate mix without the program, right? So now that we have the program coming in via Dante over our AVIO product, we can select who gets to hear that and who doesn't. So you'll notice here, then on the auto mixer, here's what's going on. Mixer number 1 is going to be, let me back out of here real quick. Yeah, so mix number 1 is party line, the full party line, the intercom system, everybody, left and right, outputs 1 and 2. Output 3 is going to be a mono mix. Okay, so it's going to be combined mono, and it's going to go into a mono system and then be outputted just mono on the output side of Dante. Channel 4 is going to be just the audio from program. Okay, because we're going to need to be able to manipulate that audio and add it to our party lines, both mono and left-right. Vice versa, left-right and mono. So outputs 1, 2, and 3. We're going to need to be able to manipulate the program audio and output that specifically how we want it, and I'll explain that in a second. And then we have channels 5 and 6, which will be, according to this, my left and right back to the soundboard. So the soundboard is not going to get program. The only thing that the soundboard is going to get is our voices if we are talking. If we're not talking, it's not going to hear any of that. So here we go. Outputs on the second mixer, matrix mixer. 1 and 2 are party line, left and right. Output number 3 is a mono mix party line if we ever need it. It's purely as an option to integrate inside of controller. Output 4 is just program. Okay, so it's outputting left-right program so that we can integrate that down the chain into our headphones. And then 5 and 6 is going to be left-right intercoms, party line, back to the soundboard without program. Okay? All right, so moving along. So these come out of the matrix, and this is where we split off and kind of start doing some customization with what we hear in our headphones. So now we've got our signal basically ready to be heard and then headed towards the outputs. So the left and right is the one that I'm listening to right now, and that is outputs 1 and 2 out of this blue matrix. This goes into an expander and a gate. And this gate, as you can see, shuts off, closes when I stop talking. And the beautiful thing about that is if you have a hypersensitive microphone, or you have wind noise or an air conditioner, or rack noise, which I definitely have rack noise. We have rack noise inside of our booth at the soundstage. This will close that noise off, and so that my headphones and the other people in the party line cannot hear it. Now, this is a general left and right signal that when no one's talking, the gate closes. Okay, and you can see that happening in real time. All right, then. I've set these parameters what I think will be needed, but we're going to adjust these probably in real time once the system gets up and running and we get comfortable with it. But you'll notice that the gate has a very quick attack at 3 milliseconds. It holds for like 150, 160 milliseconds, and then it releases a bit slower so that not to cut off my words, but to catch everything that I say. So it's not clipping, and I'm not losing words because the gate stays open long enough. Okay, so there's the gate. Now these settings are copied between the stereo, the mono gate for output 3, and the gate here that is for the program that's going, the intercoms going back to the board. Okay, so these settings are all duplicated in these, and you can actually copy and make a copy and duplicate the module, and then just make the wire lines that you want. So that's pretty cool. So the expander gate is then the gate. I'm not using it as an expander at all, but the gate is active at all times and makes my headset go dead, and that will be very important for the next down the chain. Now the next thing, again, which are all duplicated, is our EQ. And something that you need to learn, something that I needed to learn, maybe not you, but something that I desperately needed to learn with intercoms is it's not sound like on a stage or out of a speaker. Intercoms is about clarity, right? And so you need to be able to hear everything that is said. And so you'll notice here that my EQ looks a little strange. I have a high-pass filter that's set at 12 dB, and it's rolled up to like 115 hertz, like on the scale. It starts at about 115 hertz, which means that anything below 150 starts to roll off at a pretty steep decline at 12 decibels, which is great, which is what you want, because you don't need a big bassy voice that provides some muddiness in your headphones. And if you have a register like mine, then you want your voice to be clear. It's fine that you can still hear the bass tones, but you don't want them to muddy the signal that's coming across, especially when you're doing live production and things need to be absolutely crystal clear. And in also talking with that is the sibilance range, frequency range, which is right around the 2500 hertz. I've bumped the sibilance range. Okay, so this is on screen here, it's band 3, which is set to 2439, but right around 2500. And I've tightened up that Q to 1.5. And what that's done is things like when the S's and T's and all of those provide a little bit of a pop, which means that it's not, again, muddy when you are talking and providing direction. Now, it's going to be pretty important that your headphones have some sort of wind screen on them. And these, I can get you the product number on these, but these HyperX $40 headphones, TRRS headphones, they all come with windscreens and actually a fairly big microphone. If we take this off, look at the size of that. That thing's huge. That's a lot bigger than the one that's on my headphones right here, although I suspect this microphone may be a little higher caliber given the cost. Regardless, it's important that you're going to have a windscreen because the sibilance is going to pick up more of that. And so you're going to want to be sure that you are filtering that out so that you aren't getting a lot of that wind noise. If I blow into this windscreen, I hear it still, but it's not every single breath, and it's not while I'm breathing, which is important. And then I don't actually have a low pass on here, although it is selected, but the band is not active. So I just leave that off for now because I'm not too concerned. Now, if I get a bunch of female voices on the line and it's, there's a whole bunch of data there in the high range, we can roll that off a little bit to provide a little bit more clarity. But generally speaking, with these drivers, the better drivers inside a set of gaming headphones or something like that, the higher stuff is not going to be as important as the lower stuff. You can really create a rumble and a distraction if you don't do the high pass roll off, which is here on the bottom end. It's kind of confusing because high pass means low and low pass means high. But anyway, nobody's asking for perfection. Anyways, these settings then are duplicated again, one for the mono and one for the stereo. That's going over to the soundboard on channels 5 and 6 on the output. Okay, the last piece then is the ducker, which is what I'm really excited about. What the ducker does is it brings in your left and right audio, and then when you stop talking, it brings up the side chain, which is the program. So we bring the program out of the output here, which remember was channel 4, right? So if we go here, output 4 is program. We bring the program out of channel 4 and we bring it into the side chain of the ducker. And what that does is when I talk, the program audio will go down, not disappear, but will go down, and my voice will be crystal clear over top of it. But then when I stop talking, after a second or two, depends on what you set the release at, but after a second or two, then the ducker will open up again, or will close the gate on here, and will increase the volume of the program. And so the program will then be the dominant thing that's happening in our ears. But when I talk, it will bring it down so that I can be heard when I talk, which will be really kind of a cool feature that we haven't been able to have up until now. And this is one of the most exciting parts of this integration. Again, with the Dante AVIO unit, we're going to be able to bring in program left and right, bring it down to a single channel, send it over to the ducker, and then the ducker is going to do that. And then out of the left and right channel, kind of the last thing here on this chain, out of the ducker, which is left and right, we then come over and we go to the camera outputs. And so we go cameras 1 and 2, and then we go party line, 1 left and party line right. Okay, and now we have Dante out, right? So Dante out is what this looks like. And oh, look, we can see what channels are receiving the audio. Now we have the channel 1 and 2, which is party line left and right. That's what I'm talking on right now. That's what I want to hear. And then we have 3, which is our mono line, 4, which is a Vox line. So, and again, I'm making these for future purposes, but we have a Vox line. And then we have our soundboard, which is 5 and 6. And so that's me talking, but no program audio on that one. And you'll also notice that we have 64 outputs in Dante. And so we've got this huge grid that we're going to be able to use when we're ready to kind of go live. Now let me bring up then the workflow. I'm going to save this again. Yep. So here is then all of those channels, right? So this is a little confusing with the radius open, but with the radius like this, you can see all the 64 transmit channels, and you can see all the 64 receive channels inside of the DSP. That means I basically have about 55 open channels in the DSP that are Dante that aren't doing anything right now, but that are available for routing when we go in that direction. Now, we have an X32, and one of the things is we're talking about maybe upgrading, maybe not, maybe adding a Dante module, maybe not. Well, if we upgrade to a wing, which is kind of the next step for the Behringer world, if we go to a wing, they have a Dante module that we could get, which I would be a big if we're going to buy a new soundboard, I would advocate that we need to also get a Dante card, because then all of those channels could then come in via Dante, and I could route those any way that I want. But the other option is that you could just buy a Dante card for the X32. We have a full soundboard X32, and you can add Dante to that and then add it to your network, and off to the races we go. So there's sky's the limits. Even if we added all 32 channels of the X32, I would still have Dante channels inside my DSP to do other things with. And so as NDI begins to integrate with Dante, I don't know if you noticed this, but Rode just announced that they now work with NDI. And so if they work with NDI, they're probably steps away from working with Dante. You can get NDI to Dante converters. So there is that option. Those are mostly software driven, but there's that option as well. So the sky's the limits. We have an intercom system that is vastly expandable. We could have like 60 other users if we wanted to, which would triple our attendance on a Sunday morning. Because at the soundstage, we're just there to record, and the people that come get to kind of see behind the scenes. But that's not the primary focus, is having lots of people at the soundstage. My technical crew, though, do need to hear clearly what is going on. And the Ceramonics, although they have served us well for the past probably a year now, I'm sick and tired of them dropping out. And you want to know what never happens with Dante hardwire? They never drop out. And so not only do I have a lot more flexibility, if I need to bring another body pack online, it will literally take me 5 minutes to do that. And then, running the cable will take longer than integrating it with the system. So pretty excited that is on the horizon. All right. So one thing. So every Dante network needs a DSP, right? A digital signal processor. You can set whatever you'd like to be the clock for Dante. Because what's happening with Dante is we're turning the data into ones and zeros, and then Dante needs to know what's the time code, if you will. Like, who are we synchronizing to? The DSP is what you synchronize it to in a big Dante installation, because everything's coming into there. And so all of my products are checking with the Dante clock inside my Symmetrics radius for synchronization. So it's very simple that way, where we are... everybody can look to the radius, and it is the primary clock leader, which is what you see here at the top, primary clock leader. You can set that inside the network preferences. I have not figured out, by the way, inside the radius, there are two network ports. From what I can tell, there are two settings. There's a switched setting, and there is a redundant setting. When I set it to redundant, it seems to screw things up. But switched means that you can run dueling symmetric units and connect a patch cable from secondary Ethernet to secondary Ethernet. And if they're both in switched, the Symmetrics will act like a network switch and send the data, the network data, to the secondary switch. So if you have multiples of these stacked, like say we have multiple conference rooms, we run a hotel, maybe we have a church that has multiples of these, you can daisy chain them together so they can all see each other, and then they communicate together, which is amazing. So that's really well thought out, and I love that. I love that feature. Okay, so there is the signal chain, and I'm going to take this, I'm going to turn off my microphone. And there is the signal chain between my Dante inputs and my output, my outputs for how this is going to work. Now, tomorrow, I am planning on going over to the soundstage and doing this hard install, which means we're going to have to run some cable. We bought green Ethernet cable to signify Dante network, and we bought a 4250 that is a 24 port. And this is a 16, these are two 8-channel banks, right, with a couple of fiber ports. So these are two, we have 16 ports that are PoE, and the bottom row of those ports are all going to be Dante. And so when I look at the switch, I know exactly what I'm looking at because the bottom row will all be Dante. Now, this is a 300 watt PoE switch. These little body packs are all PoE straight. They're not PoE plus, and so they're all 15. They're less than 15 watts. I think they're like 6 watts, I think, running, which is nothing. They generate very little heat, so they're appropriate to put on your hip. One of the features I really like about them, one of the features that I really like is not only does it have this little talkback button that lights up green when you turn it on, but these dials, all right, these left-right dials, this is left ear, right ear, you can push them in to protect them so they don't change. So it's really hard to turn them while they're in, but they give independent audio control. So say your headphones are too loud or too quiet, you can turn them up or turn them down on your own. Now, this is not going to be an option with the Blackmagic cameras. I actually don't know what the option is. I actually don't know what the option is with the Blackmagic cameras. How do we turn up the audio or turn it down while we're controlling it? Can we assign a button, like a function button or something like that? I don't know. But we will sort that out when we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So I'm pretty stinking excited about it. I think I've thought it all through. We have basically purchased all of phase 1, and tomorrow I will validate whether or not we move forward with phase 2. Phase 1 install is basically just DSP, 2 test body packs, headphones, and maybe the Blackmagic cross cable. So I'm not going to show them to you because they're a mess. But basically I've spliced out an Ethernet cable and put them in the Phoenix connectors. They're not pretty to look at, but they should be plenty long enough to reach the converters, which is what we really need. So pretty excited about that. I think it will be a good step in the right direction, and will allow us to be highly flexible going forward, which is what I really want. One of the next challenges that I have is, now that my intercoms are Dante, how do I make it remote? I want to have a guy with a body pack and headphones, and I want him to be able to turn on his body pack and join my Dante network. Is that possible? I hear it is. I haven't seen it done, but we're not talking about latency, right? I don't really care if it's 2-second, 3-second delay. Because what I want is the guy in the field to be able to put on a headset and sit and just start talking to the director or whoever who is remote. So if, for example, I go out in the field, which I am traveling this week out to Portland, if I go out in the field, if I put my headset on, I can talk to my sound guy back at the booth. And we don't have to make a phone call. We don't have to do any of that. I can just turn on my system, connect it to internet, either VPN or over a Raspberry Pi or something that basically ports my data, my Dante data, back to my network and allows me to talk on that network. It does not need to be super fast. We're not recording concerts over it. We're not even recording audio over it. We're strictly using it for intercoms, and that can be slightly delayed. So it can be crude. It just needs to be Dante, and all the data needs to arrive, right? So again, latency probably needs to be introduced so that we can get all the data across. But again, I don't mind. I don't mind if it's slow, 2, 3, 4 second delay. I don't really care. But what I want is the ease of use, because the next step is going to be sending people into the field who are not IT guys, like not the director of the show. And one day we're going to need to send this with a pastor or a minister and say, plug it into the Ethernet and turn it on. And then in 5 minutes, put on the headset and let's talk. That's what I need. And so I don't know what the options are for that. Dante has a Dante Cloud option. Again, subscription based. That's not really what I'm going for. And it's more for production over AWS. So it's not something that I necessarily want to try and drop. That's not cost effective to me. I just need to be able to flip it on, let it boot up, and then he's able to talk, and we give him a belt pack or whatever, and he's off to the races. So one step at a time. Sometimes I want time to hurry up so we can keep trying this stuff. But tomorrow we are doing proof of concept at the soundstage to see that this thing works. I'm kind of excited because the fan in this unit is a little noisy. Not really, but just a little annoying. And this is where we watch our shows in the evening. So it'd be nice to get this thing out of here, set it up in the booth where there's already fan noise going on at the sound booth, and then start plugging things in and see how it works. And I'm pretty excited about it. I think it'll be great. So I love the clarity. I love the ability to, for example, I love the ability to manipulate the EQ of the intercom. I love the option that perhaps I can split off everybody's microphone and EQ each of it individually if I want. You know, like there's so many options that, oh, and by the way, I glazed over this, but I didn't even talk about this. There are so many modules in here, like hundreds of modules that Symmetrics provides as a part of the product. And when I booted this thing up, apparently this particular unit was sitting in a closet for a long time, and the guy was like, I don't need this anymore, I want to sell it. So he sold it to us, and when I logged in, it said there's a huge update that can be done. I did that, and it added a bunch of more stuff. So amazing. I love the fact that there are so many options. I haven't even gotten into every single module that's in here, but I did under the direction of Doug Johnson's video that he did, Doug Johnson Productions. I was able to basically figure this out and set it up and get it going. One of the things that you got to remember, though, is here we're designing it, and then you have to push it to the product, right? So then you push it. Well, once you push it and it says online, now we're actively monitoring this, right? So we are able to see the audio channels. If I turn this on, you'll probably see the audio. Yeah, show up on channel 1. That's just being picked up by my microphone here on the desk, which is over here. And then if I mute it, it shows that audio channel is off. So this is watching this live. But if you make a change to it, then it disconnects because you got to re-upload. You've changed the workflow. So if you add a module or whatever, it'll say offline again, and then you have to reconnect it, which is go online. That's what that's called. So really simple. You just save your design, and then now it's up and running. And you don't have to have Composer running. You don't have to have Dante Controller running. Everything is connected. As long as the computers keep going, everything is connected and should continue to work. So it's been a fun little project. There's so much more to investigate and to figure out what is going on. There's so much more, to kind of discover. There is an actual echo reducer module in the original Radius. So if AEC is not something that you absolutely need, but what I'm explaining here would really, fulfill the needs. This whole system, so to put it in perspective, we have probably spent about $3,000 on Ceramonic stuff. Clearcom quoted us $40,000 at NAB, 40. Okay, $40,000. The DSP alone was like 12. So far in this phase, I have paid, I think, $3,500 for what I have here on my desk today. Everything. And phase 2 will take us to about $5,000 total, grand total. So for $5,000, we can have 6 stations, plus potentially having 2 additional cameras through analog, right, over the converters. So it is incredibly cost effective to do something like this compared to what the other options are out on the stream, out in the world. So again, if this interests you at all, this is definitely a way that you could go. You could also build out some screens so you could make changes on the fly so you don't need to push anything. Only downside with SimView is it's Windows only. Oh yeah, that is a caveat. Is this Composer, I believe, is only Windows only as well, and so you have to build it. Now, most of the integration world is Windows only, so that's not a huge drawback. Fortunately, I live in a world where I have multiples of all of these platforms, including Linux. So whatever the software is, I can get to it and start customizing it. But I do believe, by the way, that for me, fumbling into it with zero experience and getting it going last week, right? I started doing this last week. I picked these products up on Thursday after the show. So I've had them for 1 week, and I'm ready to install. And I've probably spent 6 hours doing everything and monkeying around with modules and whatever. Oh, one thing I do want to show you. Here on the... So you remember when I said, it's kind of confusing, all these lines and everything? Well, what you can do is you can highlight one of your... So I know that my director's input, right, is Dante 1. I know that this wire is my audio from my headset. And I want to see where it goes in the signal chain or where it gets stopped. I can right click on it and I can say trace signal path downstream, and it shows me everywhere that Dante signal goes. So that's stinking cool, because now I can see, okay, we go into DAN 1 on the matrix selector, which goes out party line 1-5, which goes into the via. Oh, and you'll notice down here the second via. See how it's lit up 5? So it's duplicating that, right? Comes out of the via number 5 into DAN 1, into the gating auto mixer, and then out of DAN 1 into matrix mixer input 5. But then it goes out, outputs 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. But if I do the same thing for channel 7, which is program audio, and I say trace downstream, you'll notice that it only goes out. It follows this path, comes out number 4, and goes into the duckers, which ends up going into the outputs for the party lines, but not for the lines that are going back to the sound booth or the soundboard. So that's how you can verify after the fact, okay, have I traced this correctly? And then you can find out where the problems are. It's a beautiful little thing. You might say, you could also say, for example, if I'm here and I say, I want to know who is going to get party line 1, you could say trace it upstream, and it will light up all paths that are getting party line 1. So party line 1 is coming out of 1 and 2. These modules are currently not being used. And 7 and 8. Party line 1 is hearing 1 and 2, 7 and 8. We also need to, inside this matrix mixer here, inputs, party line 1. Let me look at that one more time, because I think maybe I've got a problem here. Party line 1. Oh, this wire right here. Trace it upstream. There we go. So these lights should also be lit up, though. That cameras 1 and 2, 3 and 4 should be going into party lines. Oh, hang on. Trace this downstream. Yeah, see, this is going nowhere. So inputs 1. Oh, that's because they're muted. So here we go. 3 and 4 unmute. All right, let's try this again. Trace it downstream. Yeah, there it goes. So just because they're muted, and you'll notice that camera microphone left, camera 1 mic left, is going to all of the outputs, which is what you want with your microphones. But that also explains then what's going on in here, because these are also muted. So DAN 3, 4, 5, those channels aren't going to be used right away. We got to buy products for those. So I have them muted here so they don't go out. So that's pretty cool. You can trace it and find out, hey, you know, just like what I just did. My camera, my Blackmagic camera analog inputs are not being received on the party line. Why is that? Well, it showed that it stopped by the matrix because the matrix has those channels muted. So boom goes the dynamite. You can easily figure out where those problems lie. Okay, well, that is the show. That's everything I wanted to cover today. Next week, I've got some stuff coming that I might change the topic for next week. I'm not too sure. But I've got some stuff coming that we should probably look into, and I can bump the multi-channel recording video because we've talked about that recently. I can bump that into a future week or two. But we've got, a couple things coming up, and one of those is my vMix caller, layout, and how it is that I am auto-switching audio through mix buses to make that all happen based on triggers. So I'm going to do some more testing to make sure that it's working correctly. It's a little bit tricky when you have all your sources are in the same room. It's very confusing. So I'm trying to do some testing with a friend of mine, and then we will maybe show that on a show. There is also, like I said, the controller for the Omeda network. I want to do an overview of that once it comes, because I think that it is a solid product, and if it's a standalone unit, that means I'm not going to have any issues trying to integrate it with my network here at home. And we need to talk about the developments of the garage, which should be going up in the next 2 weeks, the developments of the garage and what my studio is going to look like over there. So this image is going to change in about a year when I move into that office. And, of course, developments as that goes along, we'll include those here on the show as well. So that is that. And I think that's everything I want to cover. It is 11:30, and so I am going to get back to whatever it is that I do for a living. And hopefully you guys are doing well as well. Take care of yourselves out there. Thanks for jumping in here, Randy and Sean. You guys kept the chat going today, which is always fun. And hopefully this intercom system is something that trust me, you could get going on your own if you wanted. It takes a little time. Give yourself some grace. Give yourself some time to figure it out. And, of course, come to the show and ask questions, and I'm happy to answer those as I discover and figure that out as well. We can do that together. So, thumbs up so far. I'll let you know next week how the install goes over at the soundstage, and then we will giddy up from there. So, take care of yourselves, everybody. Be well. Take care of each other. And we'll see you all in the next one, which is going to happen next week right here, Thursday, 10 o'clock Central Time, and we'll look forward to it. Cheers, guys. Bye.